This is AP Environmental Science Unit 5, Land and Water Use. In this unit, we will discuss ways humans affect land and water on Earth through agricultural practices, aquaculture, mining, urbanization, and deforestation. We will also identify sustainable methods used to reduce the human impact on the environment. Let's begin with a discussion of agriculture. Agriculture is the practice of farming. Another way to define it is the cultivation of the soil for growing crops and rearing animals to provide food, wool, and other products. Agricultural practices have major impacts on the environment. The major goal of agricultural practices is to provide food for humans and animals. Three main crops are wheat, rice, and corn. One problem that has arisen is the use of grains such as corn for production of ethanol, which causes the price of corn to increase. This can reduce the amount of corn available for food, which can lead to hunger in certain poorer areas. The graph shows the global grain production from 1971 to 2015. The blue line shows the trend for total grain production during this time period. The red line shows the per capita trend. The difference between the trends is due to the more grain being used for energy sources than for food. Now we will identify several types of agriculture. First, there is industrialized agriculture. The purpose of this type of agriculture is to produce as much of the crops as possible, which is referred to as increasing the yield. These agricultural practices are characterized by the use of heavy equipment and fertilizers and pesticides. A second type of agriculture is plantation agriculture. These practices are used in developing countries to grow crops such as coffee and sugarcane. These crops are usually grown on cleared sections of tropical rainforests. Again, large amounts of fertilizers and pesticides are used. A third type of agriculture is traditional or subsistence agriculture. This is what we think of as family farming. Food is produced for a family and extras may be traded or sold. These agricultural practices rely less on mechanization and more on human labor and animals. Finally, there is slash and burn agriculture. This occurs when sections of forests are cleared and the residue is burned. This often occurs in tropical rainforests. A problem with this type of agriculture is that it leads to a negative effect on the environment. Tropical rainforest soils are nutrient poor, so farming in these areas isn't successful over long periods of time. So more land is cleared until large sections of the rainforest have been destroyed. Now we will discuss some specific techniques used to improve crop yield. One major development that had a huge impact on crop yields is referred to as the Green Revolution. The Green Revolution is the name given to a set of advanced agricultural practices that increased crop yields after World War II. The three strands of the Green Revolution are biochemical innovations, mechanical innovations, and social innovations. Biochemical innovations include production of hybrid seeds and use of fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides. This increased crop yields, decreased weeds and pests, but also increased costs for the farmer and led to environmental degradation. The mechanical innovations include mechanization and improved transport for crops. This resulted in less labor, an increase in the amount of land used for growing crops, and an increase in access to the markets. The social innovations involved in the Green Revolution include land reforms and loans for farmers. This led to farm consolidation, better seeds, and better methods and equipment available for poor farmers. The graph shows crop yields before and after technological improvements. The gray bar represents crop yields before technological improvements, and the black bar represents after. For each area listed, crop yields improved after technology advancements were introduced. In some areas, Latin America, Asia, and developed countries, the crop yields increased drastically. The Green Revolution resulted in development of high-yielding monoculture crops, use of large amounts of inorganic fertilizer, heavy use of pesticides, intensive irrigation, development of strategies to allow multiple crops to grow on the same plot of land. Strategies include mechanization, genetically modified organisms referred to as GMOs, fertilization, irrigation, and use of pesticides. Mechanization is the use of machinery to complete tasks. This leads to increased crop yield and profits and efficiency for farms. It also increases the dependence of fossil fuels, which leads to environmental degradation. Examples of machinery are shown here. Genetically modified organisms are organisms produced by copying genes from a species with a desirable trait and inserting them into another species. Examples of desirable traits are repelling frost, repelling pests, and nitrogen fixation. Advantages of using GMOs in crops are insect resistance, herbicide resistance, virus resistance, delayed fruit ripening, altered oil content, and pollen control. Disadvantages are pests and weeds could evolve resistance to genetically engineered genes, which results in reduced effectiveness of the GMO crops, and genes can contain allergens that could be transferred to other plant species. Fertilization provides additional nutrients, which increases crop yields. However, increased fertilizer use can lead to eutrophication in water sources near fields due to fertilizer runoff from rains and excess irrigation. When fertilizer runoff gets into nearby streams and algal blooms occur rapidly, then the algae die, they're consumed by the decomposers, and this leads to hypoxia, which is low oxygen levels, and that can result in fish deaths. Irrigation is the providing of water to areas that aren't close to natural water sources. This allows larger amounts of land to be farmed, which increases crop yields. Approximately 60% of the freshwater supplies are used for irrigating agricultural areas. There are several types of irrigation methods. Furrow irrigation involves cutting furrows between crop rows and filling them with water. It is about 65% efficient, and the drawbacks include water loss to evaporation and runoff. Flood irrigation involves flooding an entire field and letting water soak into the soil evenly. It is about 70 to 80% efficient. Drawbacks include evaporation and runoff, and soil waterlogging may occur. Drip irrigation involves smaller volumes of water delivered to the soil through pipes or hoses. It's over 95% efficient, but drawbacks also include evaporation and runoff, but also the expense of the pipes and the hoses. And spray irrigation, which is referred to as center pivot systems, is water pumped from a well sprayed across the field through sprinkler systems. The efficiency is 75 to 95%, but the drawbacks are this method is more expensive and uses more energy. Problems caused by irrigation include waterlogging, salinization, aquifer depletion. Waterlogging occurs when too much water is left to sit in the soil, resulting in raising the water table of the groundwater, which inhibits the plant's ability to absorb oxygen through their roots. Salinization occurs when the salts in groundwater remain in the soil after the water evaporates. This causes the soil to become toxic to the plants. Aquifer depletion occurs when water is removed for agricultural practices. Water levels in the High Plains Aquifer, also known as the Ogallala Aquifer, have decreased drastically due to large amounts being removed for farming.